In other news, Paul McCartney has just turned 82. Another very good film is doing poorly at the box office. Oh, and one minor note here. Ween has just released some new music. So anyway, what? Okay, so I'm a wee bit late on this one, but it has been announced recently that the American rock band Ween will be releasing a deluxe 30th anniversary edition of their fourth official album, Chocolate and Cheese. It will include a remastered version of the record along with 15 bonus tracks consisting of demos and outtakes from this era of the band's recording career, several of which have reportedly never been heard before. This is absolutely huge news. I mean, this kind of release has never been seen before in the band's history. Aside from GodWeSatan, which also had an anniversary edition containing a complete remaster and bonus tracks. Okay, it's admittedly a lot like that, but I'm not trying to downplay the significance of this upcoming release. There's a lot to unpack here, so I just want to take things one step at a time when talking about my tentative thoughts on this release. First and foremost, the most significant thing to note is the 15 tracks of bonus material that will be included with the album. Here they are, by the way. I'll get to the specifics of how I feel about some of these tracks in a second, but a big thing to note is that this is an incredibly exciting release for fans, since not only is this the first time I'm aware of them releasing many of these recordings officially or at all in this manner, but it's also the first full-on official release of new music in a single capacity since 2010 with the song DC Won't Do You No Good, and in an album capacity since 2007 with La Cucaracha. Seeing this notification out of nowhere was a massive rush for me. It was utterly shocking, yet euphoric. The bonus material has been curated by Jeaner and Diener, which I'm extremely thankful to hear. Yeah, not at all like that utterly pointless and bizarre Bananas and Blow release by Warner Brothers, which the band had virtually nothing to do with. Many of these apparently originated on an obscure tape called Creme de Menthe, and aside from the 4 demos of album tracks, the only 3 songs that are already out there, at least that I've found, are Junkie Boy, Smooth Mover, and Dirty Money. I don't know how recently tracks like Crappy Anniversary Jimmy were recorded. That title sounds like something new they would make specifically for this release, but I don't know. So that's the new stuff. But what about the old new stuff? This remaster has been an undertaking of one Bernie Grundman. Never heard of him? Me neither. And we should both be feeling like total chumps for it, because Bernie has had a ridiculously long and prolific career, mastering records from admittedly rather obscure but respected artists you may have heard of once or twice, like Eraserheads, Rada Blanca, Terry Nunn, Jacob Collier, Steve Vai, Outkast, Joni Mitchell, Tupac, Prince, Michael Jackson, and, most importantly, Ween. Also, he worked on one of the Red Hot Chili Peppers' more recent albums, but you know, we all make mistakes. The point is that the original mix and master of Chocolate and Cheese is a unique animal which took a lot of hard work from Jeaner, Diener, and especially Andrew Weiss, who really did a lot to make the sound of that record as cohesive yet simultaneously varied as possible. Having read the 33 1/3 book on the record, I think it's safe to say that Chocolate and Cheese's production involved lots of hard work with strange equipment and the super primitive digital recording format ADAT, which used VHS tapes of all things. A large element of the record's production was Andrew Weiss combating the limitations of the format to give things a full-bodied sound which didn't hurt your ears. If anyone is going to do a solid job of polishing this album's sound despite the strange nature of the original master tape recordings, I imagine one of the guys that worked on Thriller is going to put forth a decent effort. Now I'm going to get into my thoughts on the bonus material that I've been exposed to thus far, and I'm going to be painfully honest and admit that I've got some complaints. I don't consider myself a fanboy. I believe that Ween is a band that deserves to be held in high regard while not being immune to criticism, and this is why I try to avoid blindly praising their every move. Everything I say with love of the band. Hearing Junkie Boy less than 2 hours after it was released on streaming was incredible. It was incredibly cool to hear a clear recording of Aaron's younger voice not that he doesn't sound great still, and Mickey's super brown sloppy guitar. I had heard the low quality recording online only once before, and I remembered virtually nothing about it, so this was basically a new song to me. Unfortunately, I don't think it's a very good song. If you love it, then that's great, more power to you. But for me, while the track is sonically very crisp aside from the lead guitar, the actual song sounds like, well, a demo or an outtake, because that's what it is. While I like Jeaner's strange Tim Curry-esque delivery, the song doesn't feel fully formed. Now that's fine since it's an obscure rarity, which never saw the light of day officially, but Ween just so happens to be arguably the greatest musical artist ever when it comes to bootlegs and rarities. There are hundreds of them out there, and so many of them are so good. I even made a list of my favorite Ween rarities, which I could easily change or update because there are so many great ones. For an official release of rarities via a bonus disc, I was hoping for something more. There obviously is more, but between Junkie Boy, Dirty Money, and Smooth Mover, again, the only 3 rarities on the bonus disc that I've heard, I only find Smooth Mover somewhat interesting. It's got a punky, fast aggression that kind of sounds like the Moist Boys, honestly, but I wouldn't call it outstanding or anything. Dirty Money, though? I hate it. It's a repetitive, grating track that I don't find musically fulfilling in the slightest. No matter how cleaned up the recording of this one might be on release, I don't see myself getting into it because I find the song itself irritating. This is why I'm not totally sold on the quality of all the other unheard songs being consistently high. I'd love to be proven wrong about that, and maybe my thoughts will change on the tracks I've already heard, but as of now, that's how I feel. What I'm far more impressed by is the sound of Junkie Boy. Aside from there being an odd amount of lower frequencies coming through on the hi-hat, I thought the mix was rad. I mean, comparing the lo-fi version that's out there online to this new mix, it's night and day. I have no idea if this is true, this is complete speculation, but I wonder if there was any use of AI involved to isolate and clean up certain elements of the mix. I think that's a fascinating use of the technology, and a far more apt one than using it in the context of creating art from the ground up, but that's a whole other can of worms. It reminds me of the album Ghost Stories, recently released by Blue Oyster Cult, which partially used AI to clean up old miscellaneous recordings. That album was not received with glowing praise, but given the context of its creation, it's much easier to appreciate, and that's what I'm prepared to do with this bonus material. Temper my expectations. I'm not saying it's going to be awful or anything. I'm still very excited for it, but I was initially hoping that it would be on par with, say, the Caesar demos or Shinola Volume 1. I've come to accept that it probably won't be quite as good as those, but I still believe that they could absolutely put out something that supersedes them both. As I've said before, I have faith that Bernie Grundman and/or his team will do a good job remastering the record, especially given the sound quality of Junkie Boy. After spending so much time listening to the record over and over again, there are certain sonic imperfections that I've noticed, such as a tiny little click or tick sound that occurs a small handful of times. You can hear it most clearly at 6:15 of Buenas Tardes Amigo. And as wonderful sounding as tracks like Roses Are Free are, it would be neat to hear them with a little extra low-end punch. These are not massive issues I've ever had with the record. They're nitpicks and a half, but they may very well be related to the ADAT format limitations, so I'd like the remaster to address them. I can only hope that this remaster improves the sound as much as GodWeSatan's remaster did, since, according to the liner notes of GodWeSatan Live, the original CD release severely suffered from compression and whatnot due to its length. So that's why they put out the 25th anniversary edition a mere 11 years after the original release, which will never not be funny to me. At least we can take solace in knowing that unlike GodWeSatan, Chocolate and Cheese's remaster will be coming out on August 2nd, 2024 instead of... Look it up. So what does all this mean for the future? Well, given the band's lack of new recorded material in the works, in conjunction with the news of this deluxe release with cleaned up old recordings of unreleased songs, Shinola Volume 2 is the first thing that many have brought up. And yes, I would absolutely love that. Do I think it'll actually happen? Well, I know that when the band reformed, Diener apparently approached Jenner with a hypothetical track list and everything for Shinola 2. And that's the last we've heard about it. But who knows? I mean, maybe this recent announcement is a sign that they're more likely to do it. Practically every Ween fan has fantasized about Shinola Volume 2, and some are so awesome that they've compiled it themselves. I'm no different. I've had plenty of ideas for my hypothetical track list. Maybe that could be a video. What I'd really love is just as many of their greatest rarities to be officially released as possible. From Love Will Conquer All, to Things You Already Know, to Young Shaolin, aka Pass the Bong. Holy guac, why wasn't that included on the bonus disc? It's from the Chocolate and Cheese demos! Could we expect similar deluxe versions of other albums like The Mollusk? Perhaps. The Mollusk is certainly revered enough to get one, though I don't think a remaster is really necessary since the mix and master on that is already exquisite. I'd be more interested in rarity releases from these sessions like Kim Smoltz and Coco. The Pod and Pure Guava could obviously be touched up, but that's kind of a big part of their appeal. The only remaster I'd crave is one for Quebec, which fixes the clipping on It's Gonna Be a Long Night. Having said all that, the one re-release I want above all else is a deluxe version of 12 Golden Country Greats, which actually lives up to its name. I have never understood why they cut So Long Jerry and I've Got No Dark Side from that record, and hearing crystal clear remasters of them and the rest of those tunes would be awesome. This deluxe version is not out yet, so keep in mind that my opinion might totally change once that happens. I just thought it would be interesting as a fan to discuss my thoughts leading up to this exciting release. My criticisms should not be taken as venomous pessimism. I couldn't possibly be happier. I mean, there's a big new Ween release with new stuff on it. That's great. And I would love to hear what you all have to say about this news. Thank you for watching.